I didn't expect this. The Sony A7 V fixes like my major gripes with the A7 IV that just disappointed me so much. But it does have some major caveats that you need to know about. So I'm gonna test it out for video capabilities. I'm gonna test out the new 4K 60, the better dynamic range, everything that's new here for hybrid shooters, for video shooters. If you wanna know about stills, go to this link here and you'll see our review on the stills capabilities. First, I wanna thank my sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Tony is where you start when you need any type of web presence. Don't start on social media. You don't own that. You own your Squarespace. You own that content. And Squarespace can help you build that content with AI that works for you instead of against you. Try it out. You can make your photos look beautiful, put up a gorgeous video reel, or support any type of business by starting at squarespace.com/Tony. Get a free trial, no credit card required. You see how easy it is to set up, and when you love it, the coupon code Tony gets you 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace. Dynamic range is something maybe you don't have to worry so much about if you're in a big Hollywood production, but people like me filming on location, we actually have to worry about it because you're in situations like this where I got the sun behind me. It's kind of cloudy, so the clouds are all lit up, but I'm like totally in shadow. But I'm the main subject. Like, I want to be able to see the detail in the clouds and my face. That requires dynamic range. Dynamic range, the big difference between the brightest parts of the sky and the darkest parts of your subject and how those recovered shadows look. Both these cameras support S-Log3. S-Log3 is what they call log video, where it compresses all the dynamic range into your regular file, allowing you to do more shadow recovery. Now, this new A7 V here, one of the new features, it has that fast readout. Other cameras I've tested that have this partially stacked sensor with the super fast readout, they lose dynamic range, giving you worse image quality. But Sony says this is going to be better with 16 stops. So I'm going to get shots with both these cameras with identical settings and the same lens with my camera person Cash there. And we can see how the shadows recover on her face.
This is a really extreme example. In real world, I would never film like this. I'd at least add a fill light, but this does push the cameras to the limit. This ungraded footage looks pretty similar, but once I grade them, you can see the Sony A7 IV actually has better dynamic range. There's less noise in Cash's face, there's better color, more detail. So the new camera actually doesn't beat the old camera here, which is what I've come to expect from partially stacked sensors. It just doesn't line up with Sony's promises.
First, let me tell you why the A7 IV was so disappointing for me. It had this brand new 33 megapixel sensor. Great, right? More megapixels, except that came with some serious downsides, like really slow readout speed. That did two things. First, that prevented Sony from giving me full width at 4K 60. And that's the way I film everything. All my YouTube videos are shot full width 4K 60. You could do 4K 60, but you had to crop the sensor in 1.5 times, which basically meant whenever you did 4K 60, it became a much cheaper APS-C camera. So if you were filming something in 4K 30 and you needed half speed for a dramatic shot, you'd have to change lenses. And what a pain that was. The other big downside was rolling shutter. The slow readout speed meant that everything became warpy and panning. What Sony has done, the magic of the A7 V, is that the new 33 megapixel sensor is partially stacked. That means the readout speed is much faster. And that allows me to do full width 4K 60, and it should reduce the rolling shutter. But let's test that out and see how it really does. About the design, the good news, bad news, it's basically unchanged. So if you were familiar with the old camera, you're gonna be familiar with the new camera. The bad part about that is, like, it's mostly unchanged. Like, the screen is still the VGA quality and not very easy to see in the sunlight. The viewfinder's fine, but nothing great. The big advantage here is now you got this. Now you can tilt this out. So you could flip it forward if you want to, or you can just tilt it without sticking out to the side. Now with the A7 IV, if you wanted to tilt up and down, you had to always flip it out. And that meant if you put it on a gimbal, it could be a little bulky. For high dynamic range scenes, I got to turn on S-Log3. And on the A7 IV, doing this is such a pain. It's so stupid. I have to go into, let's see, the little icon with the plus minus, and then I go under color tone, and then I go under picture profile. And you might think, well, do you just select S-Log3? No, I have to go down to like PP8. I have to memorize like PP8 means S-Log, and then select that. Now, that's dumb, and Sony finally listened to me, and they improved that on the A7 V. I'm so happy to see this. Now, this makes way more sense. You can go under the video camera icon. That makes sense. You go down to image quality rec, and then you go to log shooting setting, and just select log shooting. Thank you, Sony. This camera's got a whole new sensor, so I really need to just validate image quality. Like, does 4K 30 still look good? Sometimes it can be kind of mushy. So I got this very detailed brick building behind me, all these trees. Let's take a look side by side at 4K 30 with each camera's optimal image quality settings.
At 100%, the image quality looks identical. Zoomed in 400%, again, the image quality looks identical. The moire patterns are similar, but the new A7 V has significantly better stabilization, leading to an overall better image.
Now let's take a look at how they each perform at 4K 60, and that gets a little complicated. Like, this camera has a 1.5 times crop, so I need to shift from 35 millimeters to 24 millimeters to get a similar angle of view, and that's the life you live if you have the A7 IV. This camera, they advertise full width 4K 60, but they didn't mention that there's a weird setting in there called angle of view priority. I have to turn that on in order to have proper full width 4K 60, otherwise it's cropped a little bit. And I don't know what the image quality difference is going to be, so I'm going to shoot it both ways and we can see.
4K angle of view priority is off by default, and the only way to get full width 4K 60 is to turn it on, and you can see it does make it a little bit wider. If we overlay these two images, I find that it's about a 1.16x crop when you have angle of view priority turned off. Why don't they have this turned on by default? Because the camera can't handle adding noise reduction, so they basically don't apply any in-camera noise reduction. However, in good light, I'm really not seeing any difference in noise. In heavily recovered shadows, however, I did see some difference in noise that was canceled out by adding in noise reduction in post-processing.
Now I'm going to test the rolling shutter. I'm just going to track these cars as they're driving past at about the same speed, and we'll see how tilty the lights get in the background.
This is the big moment, the primary benefit for video shooters, and bam, that's amazing. The light pole is tilty on the A7 IV and it's completely straight on the A7 V. They have solved the rolling shutter problem, but now I have to ask, do you really care? Rolling shutter has always been there since the very first films. While us camera nerds often complain about rolling shutter in video, most consumers don't ever really notice it. So is it worth you upgrading? That's up to you.
I love slow motion. It lets me bring the drama. 120p. If I'm running at 30p, that gives me 4 times slow motion. Or if it's a 24p film, then you get 5 times slow motion. Both these cameras do 120p, but very differently. The A7 IV only does it at full HD. So if you have a 4K production, suddenly your production quality is dropping, right? This new A7 V here, it will do it 120p at 4K. So I gotta test that. And so I'm gonna get Cash the Soho shooter to dramatically walk across the street, and then we'll slow her down and you can see which camera looks better.
The A7 V only does full width 120 at 1080p. So let's see how it compares against the A7 IV. And this is not good. Her skin tones look way worse on the A7 V. Again, this is a dynamic range problem. While the A7 V gets rid of the crop in 4K 60, it still has a crop in 4K 120. And if we compare it against the A7 IV's 1080, it's noisier and not necessarily any sharper.
Sony improved the autofocus in the A7 V too. The biggest thing is now it can automatically switch between cars and people and animals, so you don't have to go into the menus, which that's a lifesaver for me, because I would always film an animal and then I would need to film a person and I would forget to switch back to people and my camera wouldn't be in focus and the whole shot would be... Anyway, thank you, Sony, for making it automatic. The more load you can take off the videographer, the easier their life is going to be, the more shots are going to be perfect. But at the same time, I didn't really complain about the autofocus in the A7 IV. Like, it pretty much got every shot. So I don't know that that's going to be a reason a lot of people upgrade once you've already figured out how to do that.
For us YouTubers filming ourselves, I found it immediately locked onto my face, and when I held something up, provided I blocked my own face, it would switch autofocus reliably.
Let's talk about stabilization. They also improved the stabilization in the A7 IV. So my handheld shots should be a little more stable. I should carry a tripod less. Maybe I need a gimbal less often. All right, so many good upgrades in the A7 V. What can Tony possibly complain about? Just wait, I could do this. We've upgraded the autofocus, the frame rate, the frames per second, the readout speed, it's the same things they upgrade for every camera model. It's the same three things. And those were fine. Cash is filming this on my A7S III from 2020 because you know why? It's fine because the autofocus was fine. The frame rate, we have a lot of things we need upgraded, but they just keep ignoring them. Check out the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. It has an internal receiver for the microphone, so you don't have to strap in this separate receiver with like a little cable. That's built in. Sony, build that in. Tell you what, build in storage too. Pocket 3's got storage built in. The Leica, the Hasselblad, they all have storage built in. But you just keep making me use these SD cards, which I can forget at home, and then it ruins a whole shoot. Oh, how about vertical video? Have you guys heard of TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Shorts? A whole lot of people out here are shooting vertically, but every camera made today is still oriented horizontally. And if you want to film vertical video, you got to like work with everything sideways where it suddenly becomes a little bit awkward. How about can you just give me some more accommodations for vertical video? And can we talk about the user interface? It's terrible. It's like 1990s menu systems. Like you can't search it. And all the time I need to go in and find some obscure setting to meet a particular environment. And when I don't use that setting every day, I have to go through page by page by page because I read the manual 3 months ago and I know that feature's in there somewhere, but God help me if I can find it. Simplify the menu system. Give me a modern menu system like every smartphone has that is more intuitive and uses common English. Like you keep making minor improvements to that, but we need a complete overhaul, Sony. It's time. And give me a whole new mode. Give me depth of field priority. We ran into this problem during the production of this video. Depth of field by its very nature gets more and more shallow as you get closer to a subject. So if you're in aperture priority and you lock it at 1.4, maybe the depth of field looks great for me here, but once I get close, it becomes way too shallow. Depth of field priority, this mode that I'm imagining that doesn't yet exist, would automatically shut the aperture down as the subject got closer, maintaining a constant depth of field. So when you switched between close-ups and wider shots, they would look natural and consistent instead of needing you to shut the lens down for the deepest depth of field that you need. Now, this is really common because so many YouTubers like hold stuff up to the camera and then show their face again. Like this is a super common scenario that nobody has addressed. For the Sony A7 VI, put in a couple of those things, would you please? So should you get the Sony A7 V? Should you upgrade? I'll tell you, but first I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Tony is where you start when you need a presence on the web for your business, for your photography portfolio, for your video reel. Squarespace makes you look awesome. Way better than social media, which is meant to make social media money. Squarespace makes you money. Get your own custom domain instead of being gmail.com. Control your fonts, your layout, tell your own personal story. Try it completely free at squarespace.com/Tony. Run through their AI assistants who make it super easy to make a beautiful website. When you love it, only then do you have to pay. And I can save you a few bucks by using the coupon code TONY. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring us. Now, I really do like the Sony A7 V. It has some huge improvements. It overcomes the limitations of the Sony A7 IV's 33 megapixel sensor with the slow readout speed. So that rolling shutter, largely gone. The 4K 60 image quality drastically improved. The 120 image quality, way better.
Wait, let's break down the fourth wall. Sony only gave me the camera for a couple of days. And in this type of situation, which is really common, what I do is I do all the tests while I'm being filmed. And the summary that I make at the end are the conclusions that I expect to make based on the briefing that they gave me. So it's largely based on the promises of the manufacturer, but the tests are supposed to validate those promises. Usually the promises come true. Whatever they said is actually improved. But in this case, that wasn't really true. They said it was going to have a faster readout speed and better dynamic range. And I found it did have a faster readout speed, but the dynamic range was a little bit worse. So I have to correct myself by wedging this in. I will say, I don't think it matters that much. Like, I don't think rolling shutter matters that much, but I also don't think the dynamic range differences matter that much. Like, if you're filming in S-Log and frequently raising the shadows
and not using fill light and just filming in natural light, like run and gun situations, if that sounds like you, then you might be better off with the A7 IV, provided you also aren't shooting in 4K 60. But most people are going to be much happier with the A7 V. It is an overall better hybrid camera. The full width 4K 60 is genuinely very useful, despite the fact that the dynamic range in extreme situations might be a little bit worse. The lack of rolling shutter is better. And as a stills camera, the higher frame rate and all those other capabilities really add up to a much better overall camera. If you want to see me compare it against the Nikon Z6 series and the Canon R6 series, then I'll do that. But add a comment down below, because I actually have to like rent those cameras and it's going to be a big deal, but I can compare all the technical image quality for both stills and video if y'all want it. Just let me know in the comments down below. Okay, back to your previously recorded video. I like the automatic autofocusing subject detection, so I don't have to forget about that. They've made some intuitive improvements, like turning on log is now a lot easier, and I like that I can tilt the screen without having to flip it out from the side first. That makes it easier to work on a gimbal. So overall, Sony A7 V, pretty big upgrade. And hey, I'm in New York City now. If you want to learn from me personally, check out my workshops at this link here. I have a bunch of stuff upcoming. So hop in, we'll work together and improve your skills. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.